It's Christina from Card Making Magic. Adding ribbons to your cards can really make them stand out from the crowd, but a lot of people are struggling with creating the bows, and so for this video I'm going to show you how I make the bows to add to my cards. Now you can create the bows from any kind of ribbon. You have organzas, and there's seam binding. There are some nice or very pretty satin ribbons and lace, and you want the ribbons to be nice and straight, but if the ribbons in your stash are all creased, then here's a nice handy tip on how to get them straight, and that is to take some hair straighteners. These are just old hair straighteners, so they don't get really hot, but if you run your ribbon through the straighteners, it's just as good as getting the iron out and doing them on your ironing board with your iron. So you might need to run it through a couple of times, but at least that gets the creases out of your ribbon. Now it will work on organza ribbons, but you'll need to make sure that they don't burn, and you're just going to run them very quickly through. So just do a little test piece on the end first to make sure that it doesn't burn, and then very quickly in little short pieces run your ribbon through your hair straighteners. So to make the bow, you need to make sure that you have enough length to your piece of ribbon to create a nice sized bow that's relative to the width of the ribbon. It's no good trying to get a tiny little bow from a wide ribbon or trying to create a big bow from a thin ribbon. You need to work with the size that you've got. So the first thing to do, once you've got it all nice and straight, is to make a loop in that ribbon, and if you hold that in your first finger and your thumb, you're going to hold it on that loop there. Then take the rest of the ribbon and bring it around your second and third fingers, bring it round so that it crosses over the loop that you've just made, and then if you slide your thumb over the top of that, you now have a loop there at the top and a loop to the side. And of course, if you're left-handed, the loop will be on the other side. Now with your other hand, take hold of the crossover part, and with the rest of the ribbon you're going to push it through the loop at the back. So you're just going to push it through so that another loop is formed at the back. Now once you've got that through, you can then put your thumbs in each of the two loops at the top, hold the tails with your other fingers, and you're just going to pull, and you're going to keep on pulling and adjusting these side bits until you get the size of ribbon that you want. Now if you want the loops to be bigger, then just hold the knot and pull through, and that will adjust the length that you've left hanging down, and you can do the same on the other side. Now you also need to make sure that the ribbon is straight underneath to give you a nice tidy bow. And there is the bow that we've just created, and we can adjust the length by pulling the tails until we're happy with the bow that we have. Now just to show you how to finish off the ends, if you just cut your ribbon across, you'll just have a tail like this, and if you cut it at an angle, it will help the ribbon to stop fraying. But if you want some fishtails in your bow, then fold it in half, and all I'm going to do is keep the folded part to one side and the two open ends together. and hold it in my fingers, and then with the scissors I'm going to cut upwards along the ribbon, and that will give me a nice fishtail to the end of the bow. So now we'll make a smaller bow from a patterned ribbon, and if you look at it, it's patterned on one side but not on the other. So I'm going to show you how to make sure that the pattern stays on both sides. So make your loop, make sure the ribbon's long enough, make your loop, and then take the rest of the ribbon behind your other two fingers and bring it across the loop that you've just made. And now you're just going to hold that in your other hand, make a loop at the back and push that through there, and then put your thumbs in and hold the tails in your fingers. But as you're pulling, you're going to twist this loop underneath. So you're going to twist it so that it comes to the front, and you're going to keep pulling and adjusting so that you get that bow to the size that you want it, and keep it twisted, and then you will have the pattern on both sides of your bow. And then you're going to cut off the loops, the length, to the size that you want it, and there you have another bow. So the next bow that we're going to create is the double bow, and this one is using a piece of organza and a piece of satin. So for this bow I've made sure that I have a good length of organza ribbon, and I'm using some grosgrain ribbon, and to stop it from unravelling completely off the roll I've just pushed a little pin in there. So I need to pick up the two ribbons, keep them together and make the first loop, and then hold that loop in my first finger and my thumb, bring the other two around the back of my fingers and across that first loop, and then hold those in place with my right hand. Then make sure that the ribbons are still together and push them both through the loop that you've just created at the back. And once they start to come through, pop your thumbs through that loop on the right and hold the loop on the left in your other hand, and you're going to pull. But as you pull, you need to twist the underneath ribbon so that the smaller ribbon stays on top. So once you've got that done, just keep pulling the ribbon and adjusting till you get the size of bow that you want. And if one ribbon pulls tighter than the other, then you just need to loosen it off a little bit separately, and then pop your fingers back inside and adjust it again. And once you've done that, the best thing to do is just trim the ends off separately. And there you have a nice neat double ribbon bow. Now another thing you can do with organza ribbon once you've made your bow is just crinkle it a little bit. It just makes it look a little more vintage. So you're going to need a cocktail stick or a barbecue stick just to hold the ribbon still, and you're going to need a heat tool. So I'm going to put the heat gun on to get it hot, and then I'm just going to use a dabbing motion on the end of the ribbon just to crinkle the edges. Too much and you will burn it. That just gives a nice crinkly effect to your ribbon. Now another way to produce bows, and a cheap alternative, is seam binding. And what I'm going to do is create a triple bow with this. So I need to make sure that I have enough length in that ribbon to be able to make it 3 different lengths or 3 different pieces to create the bow. So there we have the 3 lengths of ribbon, and they're all going to be kept together. And then you're going to make the first loop and bring the rest of the ribbon around the back of your fingers and across the loop that you've made. Then push the second loop through the back and bring it through. Pop your thumbs in to the right and left loops, and you're going to pull. Now, because this is a scruffy bow, we're going to keep the loops long. We're going to cut them off at an angle, and to make it even scruffier, we're just going to spritz it with some clear water, some clean water, and then we're just going to scrunch it up. And that makes a really scruffy bow for your cards. And if you separate the 3 pieces out, you now have the triple bow. Depends what kind of a look you want for your cards. But there is a nice scruffy bow. Now another thing you can do is, once you've created your bow, keep your tails long, and then once you've added it to your card, you can put a loop into those tails. So I'm going to use a barbecue stick, and all I'm doing is just looping the ribbon around the stick, and then once you take that out, you have a beautiful loop in your ribbon that you can now attach to your cards. Now, to finish the look of your bows, the best thing to do, or the neatest thing to do, is just to hide the knot. And you can use flowers, or buttons, or pearls. I've used some card candy on this pink one, but that just completes the look.